Good afternoon and welcome. We're glad you could be here today, aren't we? Okay. All right, here we go. A little bit of fun today, right? Why not? In honor of the great Ronnie Varel, who was the drumming behind Animal, and of course Grogu of The Mandalorian, who Steve White is a big fan of. In fact, we may have a conversation about The Mandalorian, but these guys will not be on the show today. Thank you for tuning in. If you're tuning in, welcome to episode 25, live from my drum room with my good buddy, my pal Steve White, who's going to be joining me in a minute. Minute or two. I've got a couple things to talk about real quick. And it's, as I always say, it's great to see some folks watching already. Thank you very much. Yeah, episode 25. Where does the time go? I do want to, before I get too far in, hello, Edward Sullivan. I do want to wish a very happy birthday to Roy Haynes, who's 96 years old today. God bless Roy, 96 years old today. And my good friend Dave Maddox. I know Roy's watching. I know he's on Facebook a lot watching these shows. I hope Dave is watching, but he may not be. But also happy birthday to my friend and former guest from a couple of weeks ago, Dave Maddox, also celebrating a birthday, as are some other folks. But quick YouTube update. As of this morning, I think I'm up to 474 subscribers, closing in on that milestone 500 subscriber mark. It's going to be awesome when I get there. I'm thinking maybe June or July, I'm going to hit 500 subscribers. So it's exciting. Dave Stark. It's like Spinal Tap. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I could be in Spinal Tap, couldn't I? I could be a character in Spinal Tap. I know what you're thinking. You're right. Hello, Darren. Anyway, thanks to everybody who tuned in on Wednesday for my show with Rob Wallace of Hudson Music, my old friend Rob. That was a lot of fun. I knew we'd have great response to that, and I'm glad Rob got to see that as well, because really, just a great conversation, and the history that Rob has in the drum industry is maybe second to none. I mean, he's been a big part of this industry. So it's great to sit down with Rob. And to segue into this, on that note, Rob very graciously offered to give away a copy of Steve White's book, Art of Drumming, during this show. So at some point, we'll take a look at a question or something. We'll figure it out, and basically I'll just have whoever we decide wins the book message me your address, and Rob will take care of it. Send out a copy of Steve's book. So thanks in advance, Rob, for offering to do that. Hudson Music, Rob Wallace. Couple of upcoming shows I want to make sure I mention, as well as, in all seriousness, mentioning again, if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, so please do that. I would appreciate it. So this Tuesday, the 16th of March, Myron Grombacher and Greg Bissonette finally got schedules all linked up, and we're going to get online around 3 p.m. Eastern time, 12 noon on the West Coast. Myron doesn't do many of these, and Greg and I had to sort of twist his arm a little bit to do it. So I'm excited about this. Both of those guys are two of my oldest friends from when I first got into this business many, many moons ago. So it'll be fun to it's always funny in our text messages. So I'm sure it'll be a funny show having these guys together. Next Saturday, Peter Erskine. That's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern time, 11 a.m. on the West Coast, 7 p.m. in the UK, and 8 in Europe. So don't miss that. Hey, Rob Wallace, there he is. All right. Rob, thanks again for your gracious donation. So yeah, next Saturday, Peter Erskine. Don't miss that. The 20th of March. Wednesday, the 24th, Jim Catalano as part of this industry spotlight that I'm doing. Jim Catalano, as everybody knows, worked for Ludwig for 35 years. Jim, forgive me if I've got that number wrong, but it's at least that long, I think. Might even be 36 years. And before that, he worked for Premier. He started off at working for Premier Drums for a short time. So definitely an industry veteran by every definition, Jim Catalano. That's going to be a great, great show. Just to have Jim talk about the history of Ludwig and his time there and all that stuff. It'll be great. Yeah, Jimmy Keegan, can't wait for Myron. It's going to be fun. And then finally, at the end of this month, the 27th, which would be 2 weeks from today, March 27th, the great Andy Newmark will be joining me from the UK. So tune in for that one. Andy will be at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, and 6 p.m. in the UK. So, yeah. All right. One last thing I just want to mention. I made a note of this so I wouldn't forget it. I was very honored, I guess you could say. My dear friend Ian Palmer does a similar type show like this on Fridays, and Ian is based in the UK. And he's asked me to be on his show next Friday, the 19th. So I'm going to join him on his show. It's Ian Palmer Drums on Facebook Live. And that's at 10 a.m. on the East Coast. It's, I think, 3 p.m. in the UK, and it's 7 a.m., I guess, on the West Coast. I don't know. But anyway, Ian Palmer Drums, I'm honored that he asked me to be on his show. So I'm going to do that this coming Friday, the 19th. If you can tune in, check it out. Yeah, Ian's an old friend, really, and a fabulous drummer. Quite an amazing drummer. Great guy, too. So that's all I got right now. And that's probably enough for some folks. I hope my friend Steve White is ready. I'm going to send him a quick note and ask, are you ready? This is really high tech how we do these things here. I may have to, if he's not, he could be, it is dinner time in the UK. So I did apologize to him that I'm sort of cutting into his dinner hour with his family, but he's a good sport, that Steve. Oh, Eggy, big hug to you too. I'm going to just take a quick look and see if I can recognize, it's interesting. I'll just quick sidebar. I do this through Zoom, as you know, and then I stream it to Facebook. And I've noticed and I've realized that when I do it this way, I can see how many people are on, but I can't see who it is unless you guys, type something, unless you let it be known that you're there. Whereas if I were streaming right from Facebook, not in Zoom, I'd actually see all your names listed. Anyway, I just thought I'd let you know that. I unfortunately I'm not able to actually see by looking at the number, like the actual people, until you type something and say, hey, it's me, I'm here, or, hey, John, go take a hike, or whatever you want to say. But please don't say that. It's not very nice. All right. Maddie Roberts. And I should quick plug to Maddie Roberts, who also does a show. And Matt, I think Maddie, you do yours and basically upload it to YouTube, I believe. So check out Maddie Roberts' YouTube page, subscribe to it. He's got some great interviews on there. Steve White is here. Okay. I'm going to let Steve in. We're going about it all wrong today, I think. And there's Russ Gleason. All right, cool. Good to see you, Russ. I'm going to hopefully get over to see you and Jeremy in just a little while. So on your show, on your hang. All right, Steve, I'm going to let you in. Stand by. And again, thanks for watching, everybody. Please welcome Steve White. There he is.
Hey, hello. How are we all?
Oh, man. It's good to see you, buddy.
And you, really is. Been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. I know. I think the last time in person was easily a few years ago at like a London drum show. I think that picture of us was maybe about 5 years ago, but I think I might
Yeah.
have seen you since then.
Yeah, it's
But,
just yeah, I think that was 2016 at the drum show, and
okay, yeah.
we were shouting at each other, you know.
Like as you do, yeah.
Yeah, at drum shows. But we're missing that now, aren't we? We can't wait to be
I
back in
know.
there, drinking that warm beer and eating the hot dogs.
I know all the things we complained about. Now we're going like, oh,
Yeah,
give to have a warm beer in a in a loud pub.
yeah, I can't wait.
Oh man, me too. I can't wait to come back over. And I just have to tell you, Steve, I miss, like, I don't miss traveling that much, to be honest. And
No.
we've talked about this before, where we've done enough traveling in our lives, but I really miss coming to London. I mean, I just miss being there.
Yeah,
That's
we're already planning journeys. We're talking about like where we're going to go when we can start traveling again, and
yeah.
I can't wait to get some different culture back under the belt again.
Yeah, good. Well, I just want to tell everybody, before, when Steve and I did our little sound check a few minutes ago, or a little while back, to test the sound, I immediately noticed I don't know that I've ever, in all the years I've known you, seen your hair this long.
No, I know.
And it looks great, man. I think it looks
It's
awesome.
it's going down well. You know, the silver fox look.
Johnny,
Um,
Johnny, Johnny Craig says,
Johnny
get a
Craig said,
haircut.
"Get your haircut." Yeah, nice one, Johnny. Yeah, and Jeremy's, hey, hi, Jeremy, and Ian's on. I can see, which is lovely, and it's great. It's such a privilege to do this.
Oh, well, thank you for doing it. Yeah. And yeah, I wrote down a couple of things I just wanted to make sure that I touched on, because I hate when, finishing these things and going, oh, I wish I'd thought to mention this or mention that. So, but, and I'm going to go sort of out of sequential order in terms of dates and times, but I was in touch with Tina, our dear friend Tina Clark, the other day, and we were reminiscing about that fabulous, what I remember it being a dinner. She thought it was a lunch, but that time with Mitch,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
had dinner at South Bank, and
yeah.
yeah,
It was a lunch. It was a lunch, definitely.
it was
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And it was a really, really, and it was, I think at the same time we had this prearranged call with Ginger Baker, because it
yeah,
was leading up to the Ginger tribute.
yeah.
And it was just such it was, I only saw Mitch maybe a couple more times after that, because it was the year that he passed, sadly. It was
It was.
2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'd spoken to him a few times. It was a relationship that really sparked up. And he
Right.
would call and he would drop me an email, and we were in the process of he contacted me about a Gretsch kit that he'd had, and the story that he spoke to me about it was that it had some fire damage, I believe, but it was an 18 12 14 I think 60s Gretsch kit that he was saying, I really want to get some heads for it. And I phoned my good friends at Remo up and said, look, would it be possible to get some heads for Mitch Mitchell? And they're like, yeah, great. They sent the heads over, and I called Mitch up and said, Mitch, I've got your drum heads. And he went, how much were they? And I went,
Yeah.
they're free, man. And he was like, really? I went, yeah, they're free. He's like, why? And I went, because you're Mitch Mitchell. and and he was so lovely. And we got those like last few calls in, and then he went off to America and passed away. But that drum
Yeah.
set, he was telling me about it, and he was saying, oh, I said, it sounds beautiful. 18 12 14, so probably, was it round badge? And he wasn't quite sure it was round badge or early sort of the hex badge. And he said, yeah, it was great. I got it off of Tony. And I went, Tony? He went, yeah, Tony gave me it in New York. And I'm like,
Oh,
Tony Williams. And he's like, and I don't know, I hope that drum set found a home somewhere, or his
yeah.
family have still got it. But a drum set owned by Tony Williams and Mitch Mitchell.
I know. Yeah. I remember that night at dinner, first of all, so everybody knows, you guys hit it off instantly. I remember
Yeah,
he just the two of you guys, and he was just such a sweet man.
it was lovely.
Yeah. And then I was going to say, and then we got on the phone with Ginger, and you guys started chatting, and it turns out you went to the same school
We
together.
did. We did.
Yeah.
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 I spoke to Ginger 3 days before he passed away. And
Ah,
I'd phoned Abbas, who's our friend Abbas, who was Ginger's kind of right hand man. And he said, I said, how's he doing? He's not so good. He's not so good.
mm,
I said, so where are you? And he said, I'm in the hospital. He said, he wants to talk to you. And I got on the phone, and his voice was like really quiet. And he went, hello, Steve. And I went, how you doing, Ginger? He's like, not so good, and that was the kind of last time I spoke to him. And I was privileged enough to be at his funeral. And we got on really, really well. And I know Ginger is a very Marmite character, but Ginger spent his childhood where I'm sitting, probably 3 minutes from where I'm sitting. So in Southwood Road in Eltham. And so there was an angle of our conversation that kind of transcended music. He would always I'd start talking to him about football, Chelsea. He was a Chelsea fan, and I'm like, how can you be a Chelsea fan when we got Charlton around the corner? Oh, I'm not really in. Oh, my dad sort of took me to see Sam Bartram play, and this is kind of post-war, I think, maybe during the war, because he lost his dad during the war. But he was very fond of talking about the history around the area, and that was our kind of disarming thing, and then
yeah.
he would start to talk about music. And I remember he started talking about Chelsea when I went to see him for the documentary we did, and finished up telling me about the experiences of watching all of the great double bass drummers that he liked to the Sam Woodyards and Louis and how
Yeah.
he got into it. And what would happen with Ginge is that he would start off with that kind of prickly exterior, and then he would kind of melt, and he would be
Hmm.
great. And
Yeah.
I never ever had any issues with him. And it was poignant, because obviously for me the idea of being able to do a drumming documentary was largely the spark came from establishing that relationship with Mitch, and then him being gone very, very suddenly.
Mm.
And then I started to work with John Lord. I was working with John Lord, and John is another legend, just legendary. And
Yeah. Yeah.
John could sort of, you'd sit with a glass of red wine, and John would like literally start to just chat, about seeing Hendrix playing. And and obviously John came along and did the tribute to Ginger,
Right.
which came and played with my trio Valore and played Hammond organ. And I remember thinking that all of these stories need to be documented, and we need to know and hear about them. And and I was always saying to John, you've got to do a book, you've got to do a book, you've got to tell these stories. And yeah, I'll do it. He was very much living in the moment. And then John passed away, so
Yeah.
we've got to treasure these people. We really have, and their legacy and history and what they've got to offer and say. We've got to treasure it.
Absolutely. No, you're so right, Steve. It's yeah, I mean, I'm so thankful, like you, that to have had that time with, with Mitch and Ginger. And I too, I had a good relationship with him. I really did. And I always felt, especially as an American, I don't know why, but I felt like, I was like even more sort of thankful or fortunate that I won't say accepted me, but we got on really well from when I
Mm.
started at Zildjian in 1989, and he was still living in the States, and I'd see him at NAMM shows. And I think just I don't know, I never really sort of, like you, I didn't sort of glom onto him about, oh, what was it like to,
No, no.
yeah, it's just, it was
He
sort of it. Yeah.
he would offer, and he would start to talk. And if he, like that afternoon when we spent at the South Bank, and he was telling me stuff about when he was growing up. And I think also with all of the my passion and fascination, there's a very different story that the British drummers tell to the American drummers. Our kind of establishing the our route into the music business is very different, and I'm fascinated by that. And it's such an interesting thing that I managed to get to talk to so many great drummers, and even extending that to people like Brian Bennett over here in the UK, and Clem Catini, and these drummers that have this British thing about them. And you're talking about Andy White and Bobby Orr and Harold Fisher, and Harold is a brilliant drummer. And I saw Harold a couple of weeks ago on a socially distanced visit, because he came round to he's just bought himself a Van Cleef snare drum, and I love the Van Cleef snare drums. Alan's a genius, but and I lent him my little selection of Van Cleefs, and I mean, Harold's 78, but he's so enthusiastic, and he came round literally and was chatting to my wife, and clearly being very, very charming, regaling her of stories of working with Shirley Bassey, and I just love talking to these people, and it's always great to catch up with Clem, and I feel very lucky and to have got to have met some of these people, and obviously extending that over, getting to meet Hal Blaine, and getting to meet Earl Palmer when we had this unbelievably surreal day out in Desert Springs at Earl's house with Louise King and Clem Burke, and we just sat there listening in the deli in the desert. I don't know if you've ever been there, but just sat there listening to Hal and Earl talk. Just unbelievable. Yeah, so Frankie said this, and is that when you were working with Elvis? And it's like, yeah, and you're just going, really?
I know.
It's just wonderful. I love it. I'm such a music fan. That's it.
I know, and that, I think it's always a little intimidating for us when we meet our elders, so to speak, these guys, but it's, I think right away they can recognize someone like yourself. And I think like myself, that we have the respect, obviously, the respect is first and foremost. And we have the education in terms of their legacy. And, we're not just, we didn't just fall off a turnip truck. Like, we kind of know the history. And I've never made it out to Hal's place. I had many an invitation, but I did spend a couple of occasions with Hal and Earl together. And it was magical.
It's just brilliant. It's just magical. And I just really had to, I had to ask Hal to sign to sign a menu, and which I have framed in the house. And I asked Earl, could you sign it too? And he said, no, you're my friend. I'm not signing my friend's, an autograph from my friend, And it was so lovely. And, going into his garage and seeing all the drums in there. And I think it was Yamaha towards the end. And it was just, I've been so lucky, and getting to, I know that you've met both Charlie and Ringo. I've met Ringo briefly, and I got to do a drum trio with Charlie back in '99 on the Jules Holland show, and that was just to meet Charlie. Is such a lovely guy, and we've hung at Ronnie's with him, and it's just absolutely. I'm so blessed to be still, at 55, having sort of turned professional at 14, joining a great band at 17, and still able to do it, But I mean, the one thing I always want to say whenever I get a chance to do anything like this, and especially, reaching out to all the younger players, is the most valuable gift that you have is time, and just use it wisely, because it's gone like that.
No. Yeah. Well said, Steve. And I'm glad you said that too, because I wanted to touch on that too. And so you started when you were 14?
Playing professionally. Yes. So I joined the Musicians Union, and back in the day you had to go and actually play. So you had to demonstrate a paradiddle and a double stroke roll, and I went down to Charlton Athletic Football Club, my football team, and that's where the Musicians Union met, in the clubhouse. And I did my audition, and I was allowed to join the Musicians Union. And literally a guy came over and said, "Are you doing anything next Saturday night? I've got a gig for you." And it was like, that was it. I was gigging.
Wow.
and I would have to go to all of the local clubs. I would play at the Conservative Club, the Labour Club, the Irish Club. We would just go and we would do pop songs, standards, and there was never any rehearsal. There was never any, preparation. It was just like he would call a tempo. This guy Roy, and he would call a tempo, and it would say like straight eights, 1, 2, 3, 4, dun, 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 dun. And if it went well, we just kept playing, and he would just keep doing other songs and matching the tempo. It's almost like turning the tempo up.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if it kind of died down, then he would say, right, let's do a waltz. And they would, these gigs were like 2.5 hours long. And I would do them Fridays and Saturdays and sometimes Sunday. And I got paid. And at a certain point, at 15, I was making 250 quid a week, which was quite a lot of money at that time.
Absolutely was. Yeah.
And that really, when I got my opportunity to play with the Style Council, and muscled in on a rehearsal that Paul and Mick were having, and essentially said, look, I think I'm better than the drummer that you actually have, so can you hear me? And they were like, oh right, pushy kid. And I said to Paul, like, what are you into? What are you listening to? Oh, I'm listening to Blue Note. I was like, like Art Blakey. Yeah. So I did a terrible Art Blakey impression. And then he said, what else are you listening to? Oh, John Coltrane. I did a terrible Elvin Jones impression. And he just went, all right, well, I've got a drummer for Saturday, which is the gig that they were doing. But tomorrow I'm doing a radio show on Radio 1, Kid Jensen show. Do you want to play drums on it? And I'm like, yeah, okay. So I ended up playing drums on this radio show, which went out to 17 million people on national drive time radio. At Radio 1, and the principle of what I'd been doing for 3 years in just learning just to shut up, play the pop song, know when the verse went, know that there's likely to be a middle eight, go to the right cymbal, watch for the ending, was exactly the blueprint for that first session with Paul, because that's what I did. I literally sat and watched him, and basically he would nod and let me know, and then for the endings, and that training was what got me work.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. That's, and I was just going to say, and at that age too, the training that you were getting doing those pub gigs or those clubs
and
yeah,
pubs,
I mean, that's invaluable. I mean, in terms of like how that,
and that's what that's what I kind of do really try to focus on with, and obviously we've all been put into this sort of situation the past year, but the being sort of very micro analytical about drumming, about like about the sort of techniques and things and sort of the extremes of what drumming is all about, which is wonderful and it's fun, but the actual skill of being able to sit and make a pop song rock is as valid as anything in terms of technical achievement. And at the end of the day, music is for me, when I don't play with other musicians or get to play in musical experience, in musical situations, I feel that my drumming starts to wilt. It starts to become less interesting to me because I need the energy of other musicians, and that's another thing I really try to sort of to impart to younger players is that it's about playing with other people, other having a voice and learning how to be dynamic and making something groove and less is more sometimes, and asking what the lyrics are about to a song, and does it even need drums? Can I just play shaker or and that's what has kept me working, really.
Yeah. I have no doubt. I'm going to jump backwards because this reminds me of, and I think you'll remember this, a PASIC that you play, a Percussive Arts Society convention, 2006 in Austin.
It was. That's right.
Remember this?
Yeah. I was talking about it last night.
Yeah. And I remember we had a great hang at the bar later that day.
Sure did, with Stanton and
and I think Keith Carlock was on that one.
Keith Carlock, Johnny Rabb was there. It was it was great.
It was a good show. But you did your clinic that morning, and they put you in a terrible slot, sadly. But that's beside the point. You did a fabulous clinic that morning, and I what you said, one of the things you said has stayed with me for 15 years, and you said, because you have chops, like, as our friend Colin Schofield would say, more chops than a butcher shop. when you want to use them, I mean, you've got chops for days.
Yeah.
And I remember you open with a solo, and it's what the kids want to hear, that stuff when they come to PASIC. And then you said, if you want to put food on the table for your family, this is what you have to do. and you went zoom, sat, doom, doom, sat, and you played this eighth note groove for like 30 seconds or a minute. It was so beautiful and so smooth and so clean. And it's like, you can do all this all you want, but
Yeah.
if you actually want to make a living, this
Yeah.
is what you have to do.
Yeah. And some drummers do get the combination absolutely right. People, I mean, I was, Vinnie Colaiuta. I mean, look at, and
Yeah.
Keith Carlock, look at those guys. They have, but it's never the extraordinary technique that these gentlemen have. It never ever overwhelms the music, and that's it. That's the art. That's how you do it. And and like I say, it really has been the focus on being a musical drummer. It doesn't matter what where you're coming the polls of a drum magazine. It's about working, and I will take that over any kind of opportunity to do a drum solo, is just to play a good song. And I love it, and I love all the chops thing, because it's a hobby as much as anything. It's an interest. I love playing and working on John S. Pratt solos and Charlie Wilcoxon, and and I love all that kind of thing. But I'm very aware that it's about laying it down and playing for the song that I really and I can only speak from my experience as a drummer that has been professional for 41 years, making money at this for 41 years, as to what actually works. And if that's what you want, and I know, I see drumming has kind of gone some really interesting changes now, and with the integration of social media and the internet, and drummers are kind of doing things technically with the drums that are just extraordinary. But you always, for me, have to find, if you really are going to get that satisfaction, you have to find a musical setting for it, because otherwise it has a very limited a limited lifespan. The kind of the virtuoso drummer on their own, it's quite a lonely field to be in.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's a message I think we've all known and been trying to sort of send for a long time, but I think now more than ever, it's important, and I think it kind of resonates because, I mean, I think all of us get into playing drums to play. To play music, to play with other people, and I know that's, and girls, of course, too. That's the
or boys,
or boys.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter these days. But
right,
no, it's I think so. And but I mean, you do see a I've seen quite a lot of like the online thing, which we've been pushed into, but which was coming anyway. Some drummers, some musicians, some education, it kind of works online. It's not for me, it's limited, but for some, it's really it's going to be part of the whole thing. And I think that you can get into it, and as long as you're getting something positive from it, then great. I mean, but don't expect, it's going to be very hard to make a substantial living if you're not able to kind of deliver the goods to play with other musicians. It's going to be a lonely path. But it's all part of life's rich tapestry, and I try to I just don't get overwhelmed with things that I'm not into anymore. I just don't get wound up by it. We all get a bit bothered by things, but what's the point? What somebody else thinks of me is irrelevant. It's what I think, and I think anybody that picks up a pair of sticks and gets something from it, great. That's good.
Yeah, exactly. At the end of the day, that is really especially if it's the first time they're picking up the sticks too. I mean, that's the other thing too, is we want to see more people playing instruments and not moving away from music and like that. But I just a couple other things I just wanted to mention. And I think it segues into what we've just been talking about. Is you and I were last week when I had Steve Gorman on, and we were talking back and forth, and going back to 2001 when you were out with Oasis.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was 20 years ago. And that to me, Yeah, I know. But that was a great example
Uh,
of playing, in a pop situation, um, making it feel really good, playing great parts. And I know there's a connection to the original drummer that played
yeah,
those parts. But then, if I remember correctly, and I meant to ask you this last week, but I figured I'd ask you today. At the end of the set, do I remember you guys did a cover of "I Am the Walrus"?
we did.
And you
We played,
took
and
a
I did a
solo.
drum solo.
Yeah,
I got to do a drum solo, and when because also on that tour, the tour of Brotherly Love, we had the Space Hog with Johnny Cragg, who I saw
yeah,
his name just pop up. Hi, Johnny, and so obviously it was the two brothers in Space Hog, the Robinson brothers, and obviously the Gallaghers, and
yeah.
I actually had the best time on tour probably ever on that tour. I had a ball, and I think that the weather wasn't great for sort of sheds and outdoor stuff, but we had a great trip because it was 2 months nearly being
Yeah.
away, and I got to know Steve really really well, and I got to know Chris and Rich really really well, and I know that a lot of water's gone under the bridge, but it was a fabulous tour to do. It was because I was like the interloper. I'd kind of came in, I'd had literally an afternoon's worth of rehearsal. I still had a few cheat sheets to look at when we got to Vegas, and I had one rehearsal in the afternoon, and then a sound check at the Hard Rock in Vegas, and I did it. And the only note I got from Noel was that Rock and Roll Star was too fast, just slow it down. And I never ever got told anything else. It was just do it,
Yeah.
and I so the pressure was off, and I just had the best time on that tour. And at the end they were like, yeah, it's kind of like go for it, just on I Am the Walrus. So it was like a big kind of, and it was an amazing experience, because we did 2 nights at Radio City Music Hall, which obviously is such an iconic venue for drummers, for all the going back to the 30s, and all the Billy Gladstone, and all those kind of drummers that kind of came up, and Krupa
Yeah.
and Buddy, and I was using Radio Kings at the time. I've got one here, but I was using Radio Kings, which are I love Slingerland Radio Kings. And I actually did the drum solo, and Noel just said, like, yeah, all them drummers you go on there, they all played it, didn't they? And I was like, yeah, they did. He went, just really go for it tonight. Just go for it. And they were kind of like, the feedback was happening, and he was getting the feedback off the amp, and it was really psychedelic and out there. And just at the end of the song, I don't know why, but as I came off the drum riser, I lifted up the snare drum, and I put it on the center, just put it down on the center of the stage, because I just wanted to say a cheesy thank you to all of those
Oh,
great drummers, this lovely old Radio King that I still have. Yeah, and I found some footage of it on a camera, like that I'd given to one of the crew, and I've got it on film.
oh,
So
that's
I'm gonna,
fantastic.
yeah, so I loved it, and Steve, I can't tell you what a great time Steve's. I thought he's kind of like the Al Jackson Jr. personified. That's
Yeah.
what he gives to me. Every beat has got muscularity. Chad Smith's like that to me. I love those.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're powerful, but they don't overhit. And which is exactly from everybody that I've ever spoke to that spent any time very close to John Bonham said that the perception that he beat the crap out the drums is wrong. He just
Right.
played very very powerfully, and that's what I feel when I listen to Steve and I listen to Chad. Those guys, it's just
Yeah.
brilliant. It was wonderful.
I agree. And I was just gonna, and I've looked at enough footage of Bonham, and you can see that he wasn't playing the drums lightly, but like you say, he
Yeah,
wasn't bashing them. He was just,
smashing them. No,
yeah, he had a way of bringing the sound out. He
yeah,
he was hitting them. And Steve reminds me a lot of Rick Marotta in the sort of this natural, um, untrained sort of, but really organic, natural
yeah,
ability of great groove, great pocket, like you say, and Chad, like you say too, has that same thing. And Chad's got a little more Steve White in him, I think, maybe in terms of just his actual chops, you know, but,
Yeah.
but,
But they're soulful drummers. You know,
soulful drummers.
they've
Yeah.
got soul. You know, they really have.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of that's what turns me on. You know, I love that. And Charlie Watts, he's got that kind of
Yeah.
swagger and feel. And that's, you know, if you could bottle that or teach that, then you would have the most successful drum school in the world.
I know.
But it's
You know,
impossible.
I know. I remember that night we went to see Charlie at Ronnie Scott's, and we'd had dinner at the Indian restaurant next
Yeah.
door.
Yeah.
I love that place. And Andy Newmark was with us, and Peter
Yeah.
Erskine, and we had a
Yeah.
great group, and Mark Mund's
Mark
there, and
Mondaisy. Yeah.
yeah, and
Tina.
Bob
Yeah.
and Tina.
Yeah.
And I remember when we went
Brilliant.
back and saw Charlie, when he saw you, you know, you guys know each other. He was happy to see you, and I think he said something like, "My regards to your brother," or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, he's
Yeah.
always
And
remembers.
well, that when Oasis were touring at one point, I think it was maybe 98, 99, they were kind of shadowing the Stones around. So and Alan would get the call to go up and have tea with Charlie. And I think at that point Charlie was carrying a record player around with him, so he would have his like Coltrane albums and his jazz stuff that he was listening to. And Alan would go up and have tea, and I just was like, God, that's just incredible. It's like it was such an amazing, you know, for both of us. It was an absolutely amazing time to be doing what we were doing, you know, as brothers, you know, for the focus that I got, and from not only doing the Style Council when it was kind of doing that, and I was trying to be better and get better and better and better, and then obviously when Paul went solo and I stepped back to become a sideman, you know, I wasn't in the band, and that suited me down to the ground. But at that point, I think a lot of things really came together as a player, and obviously the songs. So that palette of being able to play on songs like Sunflower and Changing Man and all these great songs for drummers. And you know, there's a little bit of the universe coming for you, because you can be the best drummer in the world, but if you ain't got the platform, you know,
Right.
if you ain't got the tunes, no one's ever going to know. It doesn't matter. But you know, it's your contribution that really kind of shapes how people know you. And you know, to actually to actually go, you know, talk about drums in terms of like just a technical ability is leaving out such a massive part of what it means to be a great musician.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there's so many
See,
sort of life. Sorry, go ahead, Steve.
no, I was just going to say, I was going to see to Jeremy. Bye. Catch you soon. We're going to catch up for a beer soon.
I'm going to try to jump on later if he's still on with Russ. I'm going to try to catch a little bit of Jeremy later on. But I was just going to say, you know, there's so many of these, like, you know, life lessons that you can take from these situations too. You know, it's I was just going to say, you know, I didn't realize that when you played, I remember when you played Live Aid in 1985.
Yeah.
And you were 20 years old.
Yeah, it's 20, just turned 20. So yeah, that was quite an experience. I think it kind of transpired that I think I was the youngest musician to take part in the event. You know, and that's incredible, because we were going on holiday a couple of years ago, and they had an edited version of the Queen movie, and my boys were kind of watching it because they'd taken all the naughty bits out, and they were absolutely fascinated by the Live Aid sequence, you know. And Sally, my wife, their mum, turned around and said, you know, Daddy was at that concert. And they were like, was you at the concert, Daddy? And it's like, yeah, what were you doing? I was playing. And when we got to, and I've just seen Steve Sedolnik pop up, who was by my side at Live Aid. And we, you know, we had to get to the hotel, and I had to get onto the internet, and I had to show them that I was actually on Live Aid with some incredibly tight shorts. I've just seen that my dear friend Steve Sedelnik, who again I've known for 40 years, has popped up.
Oh, love Steve. Yeah.
And what we did as this kind of event began to, it was a very slow start to get Live Aid off the ground. Bearing in mind there was no social media, it was all, word of mouth. And Paul got a call at studio from Sir Bob asking if the Style Council would be interested, because he was having trouble getting bands motivated to come and do the whole Feed the World thing. And I remember that, he said, so if the concert happens, the Style Council can go on first, because you're one of the first bands to say, to say yes. So as it kind of started to build, which you could start to, before the concert, you could start to feel the build of anticipation. Steve and I were like, God, this is a great opportunity. So we actually wrote a letter to Nike and just said, dear Nike, we are taking part in the upcoming Live Aid concert. Can we have some gear to wear? Like kids, like thinking, what?
Yeah.
And we were doing the rehearsals for Live Aid at Nomi Studios, and one of the road crew came in and said, Steve, Whitey, come out. And I went out into the front of the reception area, and addressed to me and Steve will justify this, there were 12 mail bags full of Nike gear, trainers, shirts, tees. So that's why Steve and I were wearing Nike at Live Aid. And that, I think we were maybe possibly really pushing the envelope of endorsements, like clothing endorsements at that point. So yeah, very tight Nike shorts.
That's a great little bit of info. That's fantastic.
Yeah, mental.
Well, our friend Steve Gorman, I just happened to see this comment from our friend Steve Gorman. He said, Steve put me in a great headspace to play every night on that tour, always inspired by watching the man do what he does. Yeah. Amen, Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. I was saying to Steve Gorman last week, I remember that, and I hope Steve Gorman, I know he'll take this the way it's meant, because we talked about this, but oftentimes I'd see him on the road. I saw the Black Crowes many, many times. And sometimes he wouldn't be the happiest camper. He'd be, I think, happy to see me because we're good friends. But there was things going on internally that I know he was dealing with, but he was I remember he was really in a great place during that time as well. And it was just a happy time to see everybody.
Yeah. It's really interesting because there was very little ego going on that tour, or for what I could see. And I remember we all got invited out to Chris Robinson's house, and we got to drink some nice wine because he had a wine cellar, and the brothers were great. They were fabulous. Noel and Liam on that tour, they were absolutely fabulous. And I was saying I was talking to Sally, my wife, about it last night, and saying about when we played in, I think we did the Hollywood Bowl. It was quite early on in the tour. And I think Taylor Hawkins came down, and he brought a snare drum for Alan, a Tama snare drum. He said, I heard Alan can't do the tour, so I brought him a snare drum. And I hope Alan's still got it. So I packed that away for him and brought it home. And Taylor was there, and Chad was there, and Slash was there, and Liv Tyler was there. And it was just crazy. But I was thinking, well, it's not my band. I can have fun with it. You just enjoy this. And I remember Chad pulling up outside. I think he was driving a Harley at the time. And I think he had a helmet on then, you couldn't really see his face. And security were like, nobody, you can't, oh, Chad, man, and they just let him park right outside and left his bike there.
Of course,
yeah, rock and roll royalty.
Oh, that's too funny. Yeah. Well, and Steve said a similar thing when he played with the Stereophonics, that it was that idea of just like, it's not my band, so I can really relax and just have a good time doing this,
Yeah. Well, as I said to Steve, I mean, I saw the phonics player Earl's cool, and I've seen the phonics play a lot over the years. And Jamie, I've known Jamie since he was 14. There, Jamie Morrison, their current drummer, who he's a lovely, lovely guy. And I knew Stuart Cable really, really well, and obviously, but I have to say that I've never heard the band sound better than when Steve was playing with them. It just, you know, and I understand all the reasons why it never went on, but it really, they just gave him the weight that they needed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's cool. That's and so you started playing. So you started playing in the Style Council at 17.
17, yeah.
17, and that sort of went on, and then from there you were playing with when the band ended with Paul Weller.
Yeah.
Sort of off and on.
Yeah.
And then you get a call to sub for Zach Starkey with The Who.
Yeah, that was
was
a strange one, because you know, obviously Zach was playing with Oasis, and Zach had replaced Alan in Oasis, so it was all a bit weird. And my friend Angie Jenkinson just called me. She worked for Teenage Cancer Trust, who we'd done some stuff for, and you know, but they just said, look, it's not guaranteed, but they think that The Who are going to do Live Aid. Do you and Damon want, you know, would you be able to do it? And we were like, well, yeah, okay. And we didn't really hear anything else about it for weeks.
Yeah.
Is it, you know, I'm speaking to Damon, is it happening or is it not happening? And then we got a communication to say, can you learn these 5 tunes? You know, they gave us a list of tunes that we were required to learn. So we learned them. And then we got a call that we were going to go to Bray. This was the day before. Bray is where they rehearsed in a massive kind of barn, and we went down, and the gear was all set up. I had my drum tech there, and we went in, and Roger was there. We chatted with Roger for a bit. Pete turned up. We played Won't Get Fooled Again and Who Are You, and then Pete left, and that was it. It was like literally. So me and Damon were like, is this happening? Or, you know, is this actually going ahead? And that was it. He just, I don't know what was going on. You know, I never tried to pry too much into the chemistry, because I was just going in because it was the request of my friend Angie. And so we only played the songs once on the day before. And then I was given a set of in-ear monitors, which in 15 years ago were pretty awful. I wanted to use cans, you know, like Keith, and gaffer them around my head, but they wouldn't let me. And you know, so my kind of engagement and my time with The Who was probably minutes. You know, in my career, it was minutes, and you know, and the event happened, and I remember saying to Sally, because Sally came along, and we were like stood backstage, and I was trying to find her, and all I could hear was Comfortably Numb playing out across Hyde Park, you know, with Nick Mason and Floyd, and it was just absolutely surreal. And then we got introduced to Mariah Carey, which was brilliant, getting to meet one of my musical idols, and it was just surreal. We stood backstage. Pete and Roger had gone. They left. So I'm saying to Damon, like, what just happened, you know? And he's like, you know, it's done. So we stayed because everyone had gone. Everyone had left. All the band had gone. We're in the dressing room, and the guys, I don't think they don't drink. Pete certainly doesn't. So there was a fridge full of beer, a case of wine, and everyone had gone. So me and Damon and Sally and Damon's partner, we were in the Who's dressing room till 4 o'clock in the morning, getting absolutely smashed. And we got asked to leave. We got asked to leave the park by the park keepers. You know? So could you go? You know, hey, brilliant. So, you know, as I say, my kind of, you know, and I don't, you know, I love to say that you know, it was an honor to play with The Who, but I don't put that down as a part of my career, because essentially
Yeah.
I sat in for two numbers and that was it.
I never heard that backstory.
Oh man,
that's hilarious.
yeah, it was great. And as I say, I genuinely am. It was a real sort of honor to get to meet. We met Snoop Dogg, and Steve Sidelnik was there again because he was playing with Madonna, and we met Snoop Dogg and Mariah Carey and Nick Mason was there, and the Floyd were there. It was just, you're just kind of like a kid again, just going like, what am I doing here? It's like imposter syndrome. What am I doing here? And I think that it was interesting because on the Monday there was a really lovely kind of summary of the whole kind of concert, and it seemed that the general consensus was that the old guys stole the show, kind of thing, and Floyd and the Who's performance, and Bill Kirbishley, who I know, and because obviously Alan Kirbishley was Charlton's manager at the time, my football team, and Bill was really like, he said he was really complimentary, and he said, look, I'd like to see if things don't happen with Zach and he stays out with Oasis, and we can't get him back, would you and Damon be up for doing it? He said, I like what you bring. He said, it sounds a bit raw. And that was a lovely compliment from Bill.
Yeah.
I got a lovely letter from, which is up on the wall over there, from Pete and Roger, just saying thank you for being part of it. So I have a little memento, and then I've got my little my letter from Sir Paul here, that for taking part in the War Child thing. Congratulations on the success of the Help album. Thanks for the vibes on the drums and your excellent jamming, Paul. That's good.
Oh man, are you kidding? That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. So and like I say, I feel so in my time, I've actually put, and I don't, like I said, I don't put them on my, as I know some drummers will literally be in the same room as somebody, and that's on their CV, but I could never, I never do that. But in my sort of time, with being on stage with John Lord, being on stage with Jimmy Page, being on stage with Pete and Roger, performing in studio with Paul McCartney, Ray Davis, actually getting to play with Ray Davis and the Stereophonics and Oasis. And these are all things I don't put on the CV because I don't feel it's appropriate, because I'm not their drummer. I was, a part of a charity thing. But the fact is that I did get to play with all of these people, and that's just amazing.
That's great. And that's you're a humble man, Steve.
Yeah, well, I think I just don't. I find it kind of embarrassing, to be. I know, and it does seem to be for some people that you don't seem to have any kind of shame button, and will just literally say anything, do anything. It's just not my style.
Good man. I know that if I had all those gigs, I'd be, they'd be all over my Facebook page.
As I say, I just can't do it. And I mean, Sally gets really, if we go anywhere, and I introduce myself. So what do you do? And I just say, I'm a teacher, a music teacher, and that kind of is enough to turn anybody off, because I just find it really hard, sort of saying, oh, well, I've done this and I've done that.
Yeah.
And I just kind of, invariably someone will come up at the end of the evening and go, oh, I didn't know that you did that, or this is, you played on this or you played on that, and that's that's a kind of nicer way to be, I think.
I think so too, and that's great. You're a top chap all the way through, no doubt.
Try to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just it just, all these random thoughts are going through my head. I'm going to just jump back to another funny story that a situation we were in together. And I think you might remember this. It was after one of the Zildjian dues, one of the early artist sessions in the early 2000s. And I think it was at John Henry's.
Yeah.
And a handful of us went out to dinner. Yourself, me, Bob, Tina, I think Rab Zildjian. And Andy Gangadine too, I think.
Yeah.
And we went to a vegetarian Indian restaurant.
That's right. Yeah.
And Andy's van, that giant box van that he had, and I remember him parking it on this street, like thinking it was going to get towed away or something. But, it was, anyway, I have these, and the restaurant didn't serve, we all wanted a glass of wine, and it was
Yeah,
a dry
yeah,
restaurant.
yeah, yeah.
So I think Rab Zildjian went next door and or maybe a few of us, and bought like many bottles of wine.
It's too many bottles of wine.
Too many bottles of wine. And I just remember Andy was,
Oh yeah.
I don't think Andy drank, and I think he drove us all back. I remember going
In the
over to
back of his van.
Yeah, Westminster Bridge at like 2 a.m. Yeah.
And
Back in central London.
I think you said to me, "Hey Steve, this must what it be like to be kidnapped." In the back of Andy's van, like, oh, where we go?
I know.
And he drove us home. It was brilliant. There's such a that kind of really rich kind of vein of players that were around from when I was a 17, 18-year-old, and intermittently. And I mean, obviously London has played such an incredible part of my musical life. I'm a Londoner. I love London. I don't ever want to live in any other city. And at the time, musically in the 80s, as well as doing the Style Council, there was so much vibrancy to the whole scene. Just on the point when that kind of movement of acid jazz came in, and you could go to Dingwall's or the 100 Club or Ronnie's or the Wag Club, and you would see Neil Wilkinson, and you would see Andy Gangadine, and you would see Jeremy, and you'd see like Gavin Harrison, and these were all my kind of contemporaries, slightly older, and hi guys, how's it going? What a rich kind of vein of players. And Mark Mondesi, I remember the first time seeing Mark Mondesi with Courtney Pine and just going, what? What? How'd you do that? And we became really good friends, and that's the strange thing. It's gone 40 years later, and it's so good to see so many of those drummers are still so, and Jeff Dugmore is another friend of mine from years back. And it's just so good to see them all still out there doing it. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is. And so, you mentioned earlier before we were actually on the air, you mentioned you're going to go back to teaching. Is it next week?
Tuesday. Yeah. Tuesday. Yeah. So.
And how long has it been that has it been since last year that?
Yes. I was able, because I teach at Trinity Laban, which I have, the percussion department only has 15 students, and they're all really, really good players. They're a very wonderful bunch. And my drum room overlooks the River Thames at Greenwich, in the Royal Naval College. And if anybody doesn't know it, Google the Royal Naval College. It's a Grade 1 listed building, so it's incredibly prestigious and very, very historical, and I love it. It's not everyone has a very personalized education program, so we work on their individual program because there's so few of them. So some might be wanting to work on Latin, some might be wanting to work on jazz independence, and I kind of supervise it all, and that's as much as I really like to do. I was able to teach up until I was told I can't teach, which was in December. So everybody was taught one-to-one from the start of last year's term until I was told I can't do it. And now I'm going back in to start teaching again on Tuesday, because I think, I've got I just would rather be there. We've got kits that are 12 feet apart. We have a large window with the breeze coming in from the Thames. We'll do the social distancing stuff that we need to do, and I want to get back into face to face. And I think that the young have really missed out a lot this year. The youngsters of all types have really missed out a lot. And the one thing that as a teacher that I feel obligated to do, if it's safe and appropriate to do so, is to get back and do it. So I'll be having my test tomorrow after Sunday lunch, and you stick the thing up your nose, and stick it up your nose and in your mouth. No, or it's the other way around. You don't do it like that. It's in your mouth and then up your nose. And then you kind of wait, and it comes up. You're either pregnant or not, but it's really it's really simple, and I'm looking forward. And there's loads of stuff going on at the moment because I've got a new single coming out tomorrow with the band that I'm in, Hagen White, and been doing some great stuff with a new play along app with my friends Rich Wilson and Mike Heaton. It's called Drum Ed, and so that's happening. And then I'm doing the music for a TV series, and I'm also doing a bit of like consultancy work for a new super venue that's opened in Newbury, and sort of helping those guys. And so I think the key is having to think about diversification as you get older in the business. And for any young musician now, because of the way it's kind of changed, having a few strings to your bow is not a bad idea, really. So so that's what I'm doing. So I've kind of been really busy, and the book came out. Unfortunately, the book that I co-wrote with Russ Tarley, that Rob Wallace is kindly giving a copy away of tonight, The Art of Drumming, that came out on the day that we went into lockdown last year, so that wasn't but it's still got legs with that to really try and push that when we can. And so it's great. I feel I'm really enthusiastic about what's to come musically, and just really still enjoying it as much as I possibly can.
That's great. And to your point, it'll be different though. I mean, when you think it'll be,
well, it was going the way of being different before, John, and I mean, for me, the one reason that you get into music and take music into your comes into your life is because you love it. Because John Lord sort of pointed this out to me and said that most people that pick up an instrument globally never become what would be termed a professional musician. That doesn't happen. If you're in Africa or India or China, or, all over the world, you play because you love playing. And some of the people that, for me, that tend to enjoy music most are not doing it professionally. They do it because they love it and it's a release to their day job. And they might be doctors or firemen, but they get up on the weekend and have a play and absolutely love it. So it's this kind of idea that you are a professional musician and you can only make your living by just playing music. I think that we have to be a little less hard on ourselves about that, because it's very difficult. Because at the end of the day, I mean, I've got a disc here that I've got my hand on, and that basically 250,000 sales of a single that came out in 1983. On the first day, the first week that this Long Hot Summer was out, it had sold over 230,000 copies, and that's physical sales. So if it was £1 a single, that record made £250,000 in 1 week, which enables a lot of gravy to be given to everybody. That I can be well paid, and the sound guy can be well paid, and the merchandise people can be well paid, and we can have catering, and we can have hotels where we don't have to share, because you can spread the gravy around. Now you would have to probably stream. I think Paul Weller that spoke to me a couple of months ago and just said about that. Do you know how much money you get for 1 million streams? And I said, well, I don't think it's very much. And he obviously knew, because it was about £4,000, for 1 million streams, £4,000. So clearly we're all having to accept that streaming has had a massive impact on the industry, because if the songwriters are not making that gravy at the top, because it goes back into the pot. Yes, they'll make their money and buy their big house and their Ferrari or whatever, but a certain amount of that goes back in to pay for everything else. And and if they're not making any money, if the lifeblood of the industry, which is music, songs, has been devalued so much that it's not going to be able to be spread down the line, then it's just a simple economic fact that we're going to have to change. It's that simple. It's not, I think a lot of my younger students, they're on the shore after the tsunami's gone now. The tsunami's gone. It's musicians of my age and maybe a bit younger, and the ones that were you know, still thinking that things are the same as they were in the 80s and the 90s. They're just not. And that's,
Yeah.
it's not bad, you know, it's just change, and you have to adapt and accept. So, you know, and I saw that coming, you know, with the streaming thing. I saw that coming 8, 9 years ago, and thought there is a need to be a little bit more versatile and in the coming years.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember sitting us when I came over, um, after I'd announced I was leaving Zildjian. This was the end of 2012. Kelly and I came over for a trip just to sort of before Christmas time. And we went to dinner at that restaurant. Tina threw like a little surprise party with you and Andy Gangadine and Andy Newmark and Steve Barney, I think, was
Yeah,
there, and
same old faces.
same old faces. Mark Pusey, I think, was their yard.
Yeah.
And I remember we sat next to each other, and you said to me, you said, "I get it, man." I just said, yeah, Steve, I think it's time for me to, hang it up. It's changing, and I'm not really into these changes. And, we got into this really philosophical thing, as
Yeah.
wine will do, and
Yeah, always.
and yeah, always. And you said, "I get it, man. I get it. I've seen this coming, and I totally get it." And bravo to you for, you've changed with it, and you've figured it out, and you're now going in another direction, and that's great. That's fantastic.
You got to keep on your toes. You got to keep fresh, and and I mean, I left Paul 13 years ago now, and as a, I was with him for 25 years. And it just felt like the right time to go. And you can't deny those, feelings, because we're in the creative industry. And if your creativity starts to feel less energized, and you start to feel that you're going through the motions, then the first people that notice that are the fans. They will know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a, and also I think that, being kind of more a London-based drummer, with the constraints on traveling, which are so hard now. Traveling is not, when I first started to travel, it's probably the same for you. Going to the airport, getting on a plane was exciting. It was fun. It was something to look forward to. And it's not now, unless you're really, really lucky to be able to go first all the time, which in the music business doesn't happen unless you're really up there. So that becomes hard. That became harder. And I found that I was kind of spending a lot of time burning time waiting for a gig, and I felt that there's got to be a way to maximize my interaction with music by being more studio based, by having a studio, by starting to get more into writing. I'm going to be doing more music than I am doing as if I was just a touring, and I know some people love the life on the road. They love it. They adore it. It was always kind of something that I kind of made the best of, let's be honest. And some tours were better than others, but for me, creating music is the thing. Releasing new music and playing on new music is absolutely the thing that I really, really love to do, and keep. That's the thing that excites me.
That's great. And you're a natural teacher too, and I know that as well, that's something I know you really have a real genuine enthusiasm about, like just giving it back. And
I think teaching is something that, I've always really, really enjoyed. And I don't think that, in some ways, if you can impart and encourage a young person to acquire the skills that you need to succeed, and it's not just about drumming. It's about life skills. It's about encouraging, and I've done a lot of that with my Trinity students this year. Well, sometimes we've come onto Zoom, and I'm just asking them how they are, how are you doing, what's going on, are you okay, and teaching people life skills, teaching people how to manage what the opportunities and recognize what the opportunities are, and talking to them about putting the taxes away and things like that. And I think that's sort of a role that I've really, really enjoyed as a mentor, and I've been very comfortable with my journey becoming an older. I was always the youngest, and now I'm kind of usually the oldest, and I'm absolutely fine with that. And I think if you're dedicated to it, and you don't necessarily have to be flying around the drums to be a great music teacher or a great teacher. I always sort of think about the analogy that all of the greatest boxing trainers for the biggest heavyweights were all little guys that, you know, just little old guys, but they knew how to get the best out of their fighters. And I kind of apply that to my tuition. I want to impart enthusiasm. I want to impart reason. I want to impart, you know, the techniques to learn, focus, you know, being confident, and then, you know, we'll do all the rest of the stuff on the practice pad. So
no, that's yeah. I was going to say that's great. And the business side, as you say too, like the bit about like making sure you put money away to pay your taxes and the things that probably a lot of people, certainly young players, don't think about. Musicians probably don't think about. And
well, they don't have to worry about that anymore. So.
Right. Yeah. I want to just, for all our friends in the UK, I'm wearing this shirt my daughter gave me for Christmas a couple of years ago, and it says Keith Moon's Drum Shop, right? Is that what it said?
Yeah, Keith Moon's Drum Shop.
Yeah, which is, of course,
shop.
Right. There's no such thing, but it's a cool little homage to Keith Moon and to Keith.
There used to be Bob Henrich's drum shop. The great Bob Henrich used to have an amazing drum shop on Wardour Street that us kids would all go and like just wander around picking up brochures and gazing longingly at pictures of Billy Cobham on Tama adverts. I just see Kenny Aronoff's popped up. Hi Kenny, it's like great to hear. Yeah, so so that was always a pleasure going to see going into the good old fashioned drum shop. I see you've opened the Boston branch of Steve Maxwell's drums there. It's like
I'm giving Steve a run for his money. Yeah,
you sure are. that is the coolest. That really does look great, John. With all that beautiful Gretsch stuff, it looks amazing.
Oh, thanks, buddy. Thank you. I want to wish Kenny a belated happy birthday. Kenny, it was Kenny's birthday on the 8th, I think, this past week. And I usually text him and I forgot. So Kenny, happy birthday. I was thinking about you. I should have reached out anyway.
So I think we're all going to be having double celebrations when we get out, because we've all missed a birthday. We've all done the lockdown birthdays and things. So I think we're all going to have like a massive party, just all the amounts of parties that are going to be going on. Absolutely.
You missed a milestone last May. I missed a milestone in December. And yeah, we're going to have redos. Everybody's going to have a redo birthday.
Absolutely.
But this has been fantastic, Steve. Thank you so much for doing. Is anything else you want to impart on our friends out there?
You know, just to don't ever lose sight of why you do it. You know, if it gets tough, my thing is that, you know, when the pressures of it are you know, a little overwhelming, I try to go back and try to discover that inner kid that first listened to Love Me Do and listened to you know, Good Vibrations, and then discovered Buddy and Louis and you know, and I try to reconnect with those absolutely sort of basic feelings of why I got into it in the first place, and that's, you know, never let the business get in the way of your love for music.
Oh, that's great. There's no better advice than that. And I'm so glad. I just noticed before we finished here that our dear friend Tina Clark
I've just seen Tina pop up. Yeah. Hi, Tina.
Well, and so everybody watching at home, full disclosure, I tried as I may, I tried to get Tina to join us, but if you know Tina, you know, she's very humble and doesn't seek the spotlight. I was hoping to draw her in just as a surprise, Steve. Actually, what I was going to do was say that we'd been hacked.
Yes, and Louise has just turned up as well. Louise King.
Oh, Louise King. Oh, good to see you, Louise. Oh man.
And we've got something super exciting on the boil, which I can't tell you about, but it's so, and Rhythm is back and it's looking absolutely gorgeous. It really, I don't know if you've seen any recent issues, and
I have not, but I knew they were back.
It looks gorgeous. She's done a beautiful, beautiful job.
Oh, great. Well, congratulations, Louise. I'm so happy to hear that. Always loved Rhythm Magazine. Always one of my favorites. And Louise has always been one of my favorites. I had many a fun hang with her out in Los Angeles and I think in London, but we had a great dinner with our friend Vinny maybe 20 years ago out there when she happened to be out when I was out there. I think with another time with Chad Smith too. But Tina, I'm glad you jumped on for a second, or maybe you've been watching, but Let's see. Fun interview. Oh, great. Yeah, it's been a great interview. Everybody, a big hand for Tina Clark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We shall be back out in London very, very soon. We have a Tina and Louise and a friend of ours, Dave Hunt, and Al Murray and Steve Sedelnik. We have this unofficial works Christmas party of the people that don't have a company to go to work, go out to, and George Frederick. So we all kind of go, and we've done it for about 7 or 8 years. And obviously at Christmas we couldn't do it because of lockdown. So I think we're going to try and do have a reunion dinner once this is all over, and go out and eat lots of great sushi.
Oh man, well, I won't crash the party, but it's almost.
Please do.
If I could fly. Speaking of sushi, do you remember the time at Nobu? Tina will remember this. It was, I think we ate every bit of sushi in all of London. We went to the original Nobu.
Yeah. And it's blessed.
Oh.
And there's a new place on the block that when you come over, I'm going to take you for the lunch there. It's absolutely fantastic.
Great. I look forward to it. This has been so much fun. Thanks so much, Steve.
Brilliant. I'm cooking chicken and tarragon for Mother's Day today as a request from Sally. So because it's Mother's Day, and so I'm cooking for cooking her favorite meal tonight. So it's been great. I'd cooked the sauce in between our sound check and coming back on air.
A man of many talents, talents.
I think it's Saturday night. It might be approaching wine time.
Yes, good man. I know. I was going to bring a libation, but I'm going to wait
a bit early. You'll be asleep all afternoon.
Exactly. Well, don't go away, Steve. I'll end the broadcast, and
please.
We'll just say goodbye in the little Zoom room. But everybody, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been such a pleasure having Steve White here, my dear friend. What a human.
Great stuff.
Great man.
Lots of love, everybody.
Yeah. All right. Hang on, Steve. And everybody, we'll see you on Tuesday with Myron Grombacher and Greg Bissonette. So don't miss that. Hard to top this one, though. But see you soon. Thanks, everybody.